What's good, y'all? It's Zylaris, and I want to give my extended take on the 3.26 delay situation and the future of Path of Exile 2. Now, I know I'm caught red-handed. I was lambasting the game. I was giving takes that, oh, people said it's early access. You can't say that. Oh, they'll get it around to it. It's not the main game. It's a work in progress. Well, now it is the main game. Now PoE 2 needs to perform. Now PoE 2 needs to suffice as a standard league drop. If you're going to prioritize it over 3.26 and further PoE 1 updates, its early access is no excuse for things to be just in a completely broken state. And there's also ideological, foundational things they have implemented that need to be changed. Towers, for one. That has nothing to do with early access. They want towers to be a part of the juicing step. Just because it's the first iteration of it, of what they want to do for in-game mapping, doesn't mean to just hand wave it and not think about them until they eventually get around to it. There are countless others, like making us drink from a well instead of just refilling our flasks when we go back to any hideout location, any neutral location. The reforging bench. If you've never played PoE 1, you wouldn't know that you used to be able to just vendor 3 of a thing and get 1 thing back. Now you have to do this tedious, oh, I put 3 things in, get my thing, pull it out, ID. Oh, I put 3 things in, get my thing out, put another one in. It's like there are so many things that have early access doesn't just hand wave. I'll cut them some slack. The heralds, just Herald of Ice, Herald of Lightning, detonating the screen, sure. Early access hand wave, yeah, the game has a bunch of missing pieces. It has a bunch of broken aspects, and I didn't care about any of those. That was fine. They were gonna get around to it. It was gonna get sorted. They were gonna fix it. It doesn't take a genius to realize that these things are completely out of line. But now that's no longer the case. 0.2 is taking up the time slot and the design space and the time, resource, and money of GGG. It is being shipped as a feature of their release schedule in terms of content that they produce, and is supposedly supposed to have everything remedied by the time 0.2 rolls around. The whole point of delaying 3.26 and putting it off is so that we can resolve the end game. And so, with that in mind, I want to cover a few things. I kind of got set off by seeing Try's post here on Twitter. Guy means well, has done amazing work for the game so far, but I feel like he is missing the point here. And I've seen this sentiment go around more than a few times, where essentially people get hung up on the details. They get hung up on the minor things, like with the towers, for instance. Before I get into what Try said here, people just want them removed. They just say just remove the towers. They just want them removed, despite the fact that with the way the end game is designed, it is very clear that that is probably the last thing the devs want to do, as opposed to solutions that I've thought of where you make the towers a part of the mapping system and allow them to get juice just like everything else. People get hung up on the small little details. I hate tower, remove tower, and they don't actually think about the implementation of that system and how it could actually be remedied in a way that is both conducive to what the devs want and also better for the players. Now, moving on to player power progression, as brought up by Try here. He asked, tweet this out, it's time to ask my fellow exiles, do you think player power progression in Path of Exile 2 is too fast right now? Definitely not the vision for PoE 2 is pitched the past few years. That's certainly true. Please vote, share, and leave a comment below. The issue with this question, this problem, has nothing to do with any one thing. It is a multifaceted issue across in-game progression in the game. What do I mean by that? Well, when you're going through the campaign, you're not having a player power progression issue. First time, or try to think back on the first time you went through the campaign. As things got more difficult, you found more stuff. As you found more stuff, things got easier, and then they would ramp back up. And you had a very smooth give and take between how powerful your enemies are getting, how strong you're getting. You know, you had reasonable spikes in power to offset this. You get attack 2, you get your first ascendancy, you get attack 3, you get your second. And then Cruel kind of tapers off, and you reach this like middle ground of like, I'm pretty powerful, but the enemies aren't too annoying, so things are going fine. And then you get to maps. Try to think back to the first few days of the league, the first few days of early access, where people first were getting the maps, and what the general response, general feedback was at that point. This shit is fucking hard. These monsters feel like they're from PoE 1. We're getting overwhelmed. They're hyper fast. They're too strong. All before we found out, well, the stupid broken interactions. Imagine what it would be like if they came down and nerfed all of our player power. They made it way harder and achieved their vision of slow progression, tedious item acquisition, and meaningful combat. It's not a fair game. I'm a strong believer, strong proponent of the idea that humans are highly adaptable creatures. If you present an arduous, annoying, unfair, unwelcoming, disgusting task in front of a person, they are going to find the most effective way at circumventing 80 to 90% of having to interact with that task. They are going to find the best solution possible. It doesn't matter how hard you make things and tweak things and do whatever. If the solution exists to circumvent the difficulty, players will find it and they will use it, and no, they won't consider using anything else in the game. Everyone is using Cold and Lightning Heralds because they're surrounded by 300 fucking monsters going at light speed. It's obnoxious as fuck. There is no meaningful combat to be had. If you try to meaningfully engage with these enemies, you will be overwhelmed, you will be chain stunned, you will be pushed around, you will be fucking killed within a second, you will be frozen, you will be staggered. Like, you don't get to play the game unless you kill all of them first, exactly like PoE 1. And that is the problem. It's weird how in the campaign you didn't need double herald tech. You didn't know, who the fuck found out double herald tech? You didn't need the broken COC shit. You didn't need insanely busted min-max builds. Even the good builds like Lightning Arrow and Minions still had meaningful actual engagement with the monsters and the enemies in the campaign. It exists and it actually functioned well. Honestly, Minions overall as an archetype are probably the strongest reasonable build in the game. It's not doing temporalis, attribute gymling, attribute stacking, double herald abusing retard tech. So would I say player power progression in Path of Exile 2 is too fast? Maybe. Sure. But counterpoint, I would say the rate at which difficulty spikes and increases is not only too fast, but too severe. Nobody's talking anymore about how the end game in PoE 2 is uniquely fucked up. It is uniquely fucked up. Yeah, I sound like I'm bitching and moaning and that I'm complaining that the game's too hard. It actually is. It actually is. But nobody knows how hard it is because there are builds that are basically like putting in cheat codes. It's like you're playing Elden Ring and let's say you made everything in the game hit 10x as hard as it does. Or just think about the hardest game you've ever played and just make everything that hits you in the game go twice as fast as it should be, and it hits 10x as hard as it should. Let's just say that. And now, let's say you enable God mode. Well, the enemies aren't too hard, are they? You're invincible and you kill them all in one hit. Oh, everything's kind of easy. Yeah. Player progression and analyzing it within a vacuum I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it serves a conducive narrative to improving the overall game. And while it may be true, I would also argue that it's mandatory. But the state PoE 2 is in, with the in-game difficulty and monster design and league mechanic design, if we didn't have these things, it would be unbelievably brutal in the in-game. And maybe that's what they want, and maybe that's what players want. But I don't think a majority of players want that, and I also do not think the devs want it. They may think they do, but they don't. This game, you open a breach and you are surrounded by hundreds of monsters instantly. How is it fair to say double heralds are broken and stupid, but not that? It doesn't make any sense. The players can get way too strong in the game right now, and it can happen way too quickly, and the monsters get way too fucking strong right now, and it also happens fairly quickly. In fact, I recently, with level 35 minions, was finally able to do a simulacrum +4. Level 35 plus minions, barely able to do sim 4. If you're a herald gem link stacking character, they just all pop. They spawn, they pop, they spawn, they pop, they just go into the void, they get deleted instantly. Minions are likely going to be nerfed next league. Now, obviously, all of this shit that I'm talking about with regards to player power is going to be nerfed. I think they're going to go even farther than that. They're going to nerf things that aren't even just blatantly stupidly broken. Like, they're probably going to nerf minions. They're probably going to nerf lightning arrow, lightning rod. They're probably going to nerf spark archmage. And, like, that's all fine. But if these monsters aren't addressed, we're going to have issues. And they're going to need to affect the density of monsters in the game, and how many monsters there are, and how hyper fast they are. Because the state of loot is as barren as it is, without rarity, of course, with this absurd amount of monsters. And the maps are so big. Like, there are so many innate problems that I actually find it surreal that they chose to delay 3.26 and focus on the next patch for PoE 2 and 0.2. Personally, I'm more invested in 0.2. I'm more excited in that. In a way, it's good news for me. I care more about playing PoE 2 than PoE 1, but it seems like an absurd decision. They're not going to fix all the problems that I think would make it worth doing what they've done with PoE 1 and 3.26 in the next patch. They're just not going to. They're not going to get towers into a state that feels good. They're not going to get in-game mapping into a state that feels good. They're not going to get the portal situation for all the in-game bosses and also the maps that we're doing to feel good. They're not going to sort out delirium, gray maps every single where for affecting all the juice and everything. I doubt even the league mechanics will actually be balanced well enough against each other. The limited crafting options we have won't be balanced as they should be. Currently, the thing equivalent to PoE 1 crafting, the omens, the one that lets you keep prefixes or keep suffixes, it doesn't cost 2 divine orbs based off market trends because it's not dropping enough. And unless they do that, that's a complete failure in my opinion. They shouldn't be anything more than 2 divines. Change my mind, I'll fucking die on this hill. As long as every single fucking omen is more... Every single omen that is a prefix or suffix change or something I can 1-to-1 to the crafting bench in PoE 1, as long as every single one of them is still 2+ divines, you have failed. It's not in an acceptable state. They need to drop more. They need to drop 10x more than they do. It is unbelievable. All of this shit is barely acceptable in trade. I haven't even started talking about SSF, but you know what? I know better than to talk about something I don't have intimate experience with, and I haven't done enough SSF to honestly comment on the matter. But what I will say is the fact that they are 5x more, like 10 or 8 divine, so 4 or 5x more, depending on the time of day you're buying them, they're a complete fucking failure. So crafting is still turbo gigafucked, and will still stay that way. I don't think we're going to get a new league mechanic. We're going to get 2 new classes, some new skill gems, some new support gems, rebalance of the in-game monsters. I don't think they'll be in the remotely correct state. They don't even think that their in-game bosses are fucking turbo unbalanced. The balancing on the in-game bosses is a fucking joke. Zesht is the only one that's even remotely appropriate. I'll say it. Arbiter's ass. Arbiter is dog shit. He has one-shot mechanics that do absurd amounts of damage with unbelievably limited amounts of defense that we can currently build in the game. He has the Beast in the Ice mechanic from the fucking stupid D4 boss. That boss is, everyone fucking hates that boss. Every boss in D4 is dog shit, and Beast in the Ice is the worst one. Everyone unanimously agrees that one is the worst in there, and they stole a mechanic from that boss and put it on the Arbiter and said if you fail it, you fucking basically die instantly. The boss is ass. I'm sorry. I don't care if there are builds that can 4 or 5 shot him. That doesn't mean that doesn't change that if you actually have to interact with him, the fight sucks. It's fucking garbage. Oh, not to mention, I've totally blanked out for a second. If you chill him or slow him, he gets desynced and you get put in situations that you can't even fucking do. Going back to the other things that they still... But everything I'm listing here, even if half of these things are fixed and addressed by the time 0.2 comes around, that's not enough. That's not enough. I would have been happy with it if they didn't delay 3.26, because it's still an early access, work in progress, game that's on the side that they're trying to get out, that needs a lot of work. It would be like going into Baldur's Gate 3's early access, playing Act 1 and being, all of this shit's broken, Baldur's Gate 3 is a piece of shit, don't play it. That's stupid. They're actively at work on it. They are not saying that you need to buy it right now. It's not like their main feature game that's currently netting them profits. But now GGG has said PoE 2 is. They said PoE 2 is so important to us that we are delaying the league release that normally makes a bunch of sales for us so that we can continue to operate as a company. We are going to delay that in an effort to expedite polishing and getting PoE 2 into a more stable and acceptable state. And I don't think they actually understand how much they need to do for not just them to believe PoE 2 is in a stable in-game state, but for the player base to think PoE 2 is in a stable and in-game state and worthy of being something that you would, buy supporter packs for. There are so many other issues, such as, let's just fucking say it. Let's just fucking say it before I get distracted again. The balance between the ascendancies. What the fuck is the point in Chronomancer? How the fuck are you going to get that up to snuff? I think 2, 3, or 4 of the ascendancies still have aspects of them that just don't fucking work at all. You nerfed Blood Mage's crit multi thing by half with how limited life sources are in the game. It doesn't even fucking make sense. How much use is Blood Mage getting? Blood Mage is being used for one broken ass Temporalis build because it has insane crit scaling or something, but is it being used for any other standard build that's remotely acceptable and balanced in the game? No. But it got nerfed by half before it came out? What the fuck? Infernalist got nerfed by, I think it was half as well with its energy shield. No, not even. It was a 25% nerf, I want to say, on how much energy shield they get per max life. They're totally fine. They're totally okay. So, I mean, sure, that one checks out. You have the demon form shenanigans that's just hyper stacking up to 300 or 400 stacks so that they can one-shot stuff. But is that good gameplay to sit there and wait around for your stacks to build up so you can then go in and actually pop off? The thing caps at 10. They added an ascendancy that caps the demon form thing at 10, but That doesn't make any fucking sense at all, because the equivalent stats that you gain for being capped at 10 is like a staff that's worth less than 2 exalts on trade. So it should be at least 100. Everything, the, the classes fundamentally, melee mace feels fucking terrible. It feels janky, it feels clunky, and monk only feels good because it's a one button presser that has heralds to carry all of its AoE. And warrior's AoE is also just turbo fucked if you're not abusing heralds, so there's that. So what are they gonna do? Are they gonna sort out player power and monster power in one fucking fell swoop? Because I don't think so. When you're trying to balance something, you tweak things, you know, it's just like you're doing anything else. You change one variable at a time. If you change multiple, it's hard to figure out exactly what the fuck's going wrong. But they need to change multiple. If they're going to try to one-shot launch 0.2 in a state that has all its problems and issues fixed, they have to fucking get everything in one go. But they're not going to. What's very likely to happen is they're going to nerf the shit out of the player, maybe do some light touches on monsters in the endgame, and everybody's going to get ass fucked for at least a week or two as they figure out, oh, now we need to balance the monsters as well. Except for whatever one or two random builds end up being way giga overtuned that will also then be nerfed, but apparently not nerfed enough for them to warrant giving you free respecs like they should have done originally with 0.1's release into full early access when they were nerfing the cast on crit builds and the cast on freeze builds. It is the more I talk about it, the more mind-blowing it actually becomes that they have chosen to do this. They have an unbelievable amount of shit that they need to do for 0.2 to even as a half-finished product, to have all of the half-finished stuff within it in a pristine state. Like, let's be real. No matter what, it's still early access. They're not going to have all the classes, all the ascendancies, all the acts. It's not a complete game. But what they're going for, what it seems like, is they have what they do have in the game. They want that to be perfect. They don't want it to have any issues. Things might have issues because they're missing stuff that's not in yet, but it's not okay for these things to have issues because of poor design, poor balancing, and what have you. And that seems to be what their goal is by expediting 0.2. What if 0.2 comes out and it's a just repeat of 0.1? What then? What then? We'll have just 0.2 and everyone will hand wave it saying, well, it's early access. Well, it's early access. Like actually what? Yeah, I don't know. And I know I've had Try's post here the whole time. This is mainly a talking about 3.26 video. No ill will towards Try. His post just happened to set off something within me with regards to the player power progression question that he asked on this poll. Too much focusing in on the little tiny details is going around. Things have holistic problems, no one little issue here and there. And as I sat there and just mulled it over, thought about it, I actually, on this poll, I responded see results, because I could say, yes, it's too fast, but for how unbalanced the in-game is, it's just right. It's definitely not too slow. But with the thing is contextualized. This is why the poll set me off. Contextualized around the state of in-game monsters and in-game bosses, it is just right. Because those motherfuckers are way too fucked up for the normal builds in the game. But in a vacuum, it is too fast. It's dumb. You equip 2 heralds and socket some things in. You have infinite AoE, clear, explosions. No, like with just that, there it is. You don't need to do anything else. No investment into AoE for screen clear. There's not that many avenues to progress speed in the game. So once you have insane AoE and you have insane single target and defense, like what, you get 35% movement speed boots and that's it. Like, you can't do anything to actually make your character faster. There's no like source of action speed to invest into. There's no way to steal some other character's tailwind. There's no way to apply yourself onslaught or haste, really, outside of like a unique helmet that is very unbelievably terrible. There's no way to like link your movement skills or something like that to make your movement go fast. Like, there's no way to progress speed. Right now the game pretty much has offense and defense, and you buy Temporalis or you move at 35% move speed and maybe use like shield charge or something, which is pretty bad. Another thing they would have to address with the upcoming 0.2 patch. But anyways, that'll do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.